Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to Gita Sastri and Bhakti Sastri class. Thank you so much for joining live with us. We'll begin the session by chanting the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutane Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadanti Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Dalita Shri Vishakhan Vidanscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutane Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namani Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashati Deshatharine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Kartishe Nama He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandha Junapati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripasindhibhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. Very happy to be back with all of you. Sorry for the last week cancellation of classes. We'll continue from where we stopped last time. Chapter 3 was going on. We covered up to verse number 32 in chapter 3. And today we'll complete this chapter. The section that we are going to start today is very interesting. Before we do that, let's do a quick revision. I request the devotees to share some points that they remember from the session we had 2 weeks ago. It's a long time. You might have forgotten what we discussed. So a revision will help us to come back on the track. Yes, let's start with Pankaj Shravan.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. We have learned in the last class that we have to work not for the sake of the duty, but to set the example for others.
Okay, you have to work. To Arjuna, Krishna is telling you have to work to set an example. Of course, setting example is also one of the duties. So it's wrong to say that you don't have to work as a matter of duty. Setting example is also one of the duties. So that is the point that Krishna told Arjuna. Yes, thank you. Paramita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, we learned from verse number 3.21 that while copying, we should copy the good thing, and we have to know that what is good for us. Will it upgrade ourselves or degrade ourselves?
Very good. So when we follow people, we should take those things which are good for us. Those things may be good for them, may not be good for us. So we have to be careful while we copy. Yes, Harnita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So we learned great lessons on leadership, especially for people, who have a lot of followers. They have to be very, very careful because it's a very great responsibility that they have. So as the earlier devotees have said in terms of setting the right example, so which should be on the basis of spiritual and moral codes of conduct. And also as leaders, the leaders have to ensure that they do not go down to the level of the devotees, but they are able to maintain their own identity, and at the same time, be relatable, so that, the followers can relate to them.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing those points. Sureka Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we also learned that each and everything is given to us is by God, and we should offer each and everything to Lord first before our use. If we don't offer it and directly use for our sense gratification, we are definitely thief-like people.
Yes, thank you. Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I just recall verse number 3.30 is where this is the first time we are talking about bhakti. Krishna is talking about bhakti. Mai sarvani karmani. And in verse number 31, 32, what are the consequences if you do injunctions according to Krishna, and the injunctions which you do against Krishna, like mood and activities, and the result what it be. So this is what I recall, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Navnidhi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. What I remember is a karma yogi, he works with detachment and as an obligation. He works with detachment without disturbing the ignorant class of men who thinks themselves as the doers.
Correct. Yes. Neha Mataji. Have to unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, in 3.21, where the qualities of a leader are given, the qualities of a follower is also given. The follower should have two qualities. The follower should always follow the leader, and the follower should never forget that he is the follower and not the leader.
Okay. Seema Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In 3.25, I understand that not only that the content should be good, but we should also have a good intent. That content can be considered as a body, and the intent would be talking about the soul.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that revision. Let's go to the next section. We'll start that with the Mangalacharan prayer. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Fullaravindayatapatra Netre Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. We stopped at this slide last time. If you follow Krishna's instruction and if you don't follow, what is going to be the consequence? Right? 3.31 said that people who engage in activities according to Lord's injunctions with the mood of being faithful to the Lord and without envy, they achieve the result of freedom from bondage. And people who don't do so, they go against Lord's injunctions and they don't have a strong faith in God. They envy the Supreme Lord, or they are irregular in following the instructions. That results into their ruination. Now here, Arjuna then begins to think. He raises a doubt. He says, if people know that by being obedient to God's laws, they will be rewarded, and by breaking God's laws, they'll be punished, why do they still keep on committing the wrong things? Just like a citizen of the country knows that if I commit a crime, I'll be punished by the government or the king, and yet that person engages in criminal activities. So Krishna now begins to address that doubt of Arjuna. Scriptural direction is the topic that we'll discuss in coming few verses. Krishna says, okay, this is verse number 3.33. Let me open the database. Chapter 3. Last year. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Wait, yeah?
What was the title?
Scriptural direction. So we'll first read verses in this section. Sadrisham cheshtate swasya prakritir jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati indriyasyendriyasyarthe ragadvesho vyavasthito tayorna vashmagachet tauhi asya paripanthino Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. So going to verse number 33. Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakriti jnanvanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. Lord Krishna is saying that even for those people who are learned, jnanavanapi, even a man of knowledge, acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Nigraha kim karishyati. Nigraha means, punishment. So what can punishment do? Because a person even who is learned follows his or her own nature. That's being said here. Okay, we will ask someone to read the purport. Someone can kindly read the purport. Yes, Sonali Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature. As it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7.14. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up. One should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya.
Okay. So now a question may arise, if Krishna is saying, Nigraha kim karishyati, what can repression do? Then Arjuna may ask a question, then why do the scriptures say, do this and don't do this? If I am going to act as per my nature only, what is the point in having instructions in the scriptures which say that you can do this, you cannot do this? Which means there has to be some kind of restrain in what I'm doing, you know. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time to study the books and learn from the books what is right, what is wrong. If at the end of all that hard work, I'm just going to be the way I was before, there's no point. So in the next verse, Krishna says, Indriyasya raga dvesha vivastitau tayorna vashamagachet tahyasya parakanthino. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. Pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Right? Now, these verses are very important for us to understand. So, in what we'll do is, okay, Ashima, Madhaj, you want to read the purport?
There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and the objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization.
Read the purport.
Those who are in Krishna consciousness are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratification. But those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any woman other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities are to be curbed, otherwise they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations. And yet we should not really rally upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead to one to go astray. As much as there is always the chance of an accident, even on the royal robes. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time, owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, thank you. So now we read this purport, and from the purport you have to answer this question which you see on the screen, that unrestricted sense enjoyment is wrong, right? Prabhupada mentions that in the purport. So why is it wrong? And what is the solution for unrestricted sense enjoyment? From the purport, the answer is very clear. You can put it in the chat box. or you can raise your hand and say it. So, okay, we'll explain the translation later. It leads to misery and unhappiness. It's wrong. And what is the solution? What is the solution to unrestricted sense enjoyment? It is mentioned in the purport very clearly. The solution is, yes, Harnik Mataji. Okay.
Prabhuji, unrestricted sense enjoyment will lead us to an accident, in the sense that, we can slip from the, the principles that we are supposed to follow. And
no, that example which Prabhupada gives about accident, that is for even restricted sense enjoyment. But
okay.
First is unrestricted. Unrestricted means I don't follow any rules and regulations. So what's wrong with that? Of course, as Prabhu mentioned, what's wrong with that is that one is definitely, going to hell basically because of that. That's wrong thing. Now, the solution for that is regulation or restricted sense enjoyment. That is the solution. But then if someone says, okay, now I'll be engaging in restricted sense enjoyment, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, even there are chances of having an accident. Just like he says that even on the safest road, there is a possibility of accident. So even restricted sense enjoyment may lead to problems. So the first thing is that if people are engaged in sense enjoyment without any rules and regulations, they have to be encouraged to start following some rules and regulations. But once they become fixed in following those rules and regulations, then they have to also be then encouraged to not become attached to that restricted sense enjoyment. Like, to give an example, if someone is attached to eating meat, non-vegetarian food stuff, so you tell that person, this is not allowed in the scriptures, so you now give up non-vegetarian diet and you accept vegetarian diet. But in vegetarian diet, you eat a lot of protein-rich foods like paneer and beans and stuff like that, right? So that will be enjoyment with some restriction. Can't eat these kind of food stuff, can eat this kind of food stuff. But after a few years of becoming steady in restricted sense enjoyment, then that person will also be told that eating very protein-rich food is also not good for the mind. So now you should try to give up that attachment as well, to protein-rich food. Then you take much more simpler diet, because the tendency of a jiva is that, or living entity is that, he or she becomes attached to any state of material life. If you uplift that person from tamaguna, that person will become attached to rajaguna. If you uplift that person from rajaguna, that person will become attached to sattva-guna. And any kind of these attachments will lead to further engagement in material world. So one has to rise above and give up the lower levels of attachment, right? So that was mentioned here. Yes, Padma Mataji, you had your hand up. Was that for a question or for reading? You have to unmute yourself, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It's just my understanding that using senses in the service of Krishna would be regulation of the senses. Say, for example, eating sanctified and sanctioned food, so you can still enjoy your, the sense of taste and food, but because it's sanctioned and sanctified, that is offered to Krishna, then that would be regulated. So it wouldn't cause harm. Would that be correct understanding?
It won't cause any harm if it is done again with the idea of not enjoying, but with the idea of serving. If it is done with the idea of enjoying, then it's going to increase our spirit of enjoyment anyway. So one has to do that in the idea of service. Okay. You are speaking, but we cannot hear you because you're on mute.
So accepting prasadam and enjoying it is also not great then?
No, if you are a beginner, you can enjoy prasadam. But if you are
Okay.
if you are practicing Krishna consciousness for a long time, then you should serve prasadam. Serving prasadam means not that you just give others to eat prasadam, you also eat prasadam, but you eat in the attitude of serving that prasadam, not in.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so someone has a question: should a brahmana not eat protein, or sattva guna people should not eat protein? No, they can eat protein, no problem in that. What kind of attachment a brahmana could have? Attachment to knowledge. A brahmana could be very attached to knowledge. And that may make a brahmana proud. So then that pride leads to degradation or downfall. That is a big problem. Now here Satyadevata Prabhu had a question, what does this mean, the translation? The translation is, sorry, there are principles to regulate attachment and aversion. So I like certain things that they are not good for me. That's called attachment. I need to regulate it. And there are certain things which I don't like, but they are good for me. That's called aversion. So I need to regulate that also. Because the general tendency is that what is good for me, I don't like, and what is not good for me, I like. Right? So there has to be regulation in both. So here we have some very interesting explanation given on this topic by Baladeva Vidyabhushana Prabhu. Raga Dvesha, desire and hatred. So in the scriptures, there are certain actions which are prescribed and there are certain actions which are forbidden. Isn't it? Prescribed and forbidden. Two kinds of actions are there. But the mind, it has hatred towards prescribed action and it has attraction towards forbidden action. Why so? Because of past experiences. Whatever activities we have done in the past lives and in the past of this life, they get stored in our subconscious mind. Technically, those are called sanskars, or also known as vasanas. Like, for example, one should associate with a saintly person. That is a prescribed action. But there are so many people who run away from saintly association because there is a hatred towards that prescribed action. And there are so many forbidden actions. Don't do this, don't do that. But so many people run towards those actions. Why? The mind has been doing such things in so many lives, so it's attracted to that. What do the scriptural injunctions do? The scriptural injunctions, they play a very important role. What they do is, they cut the hatred and they cut the attraction. That's what the scriptural injunctions do. By giving us knowledge. They tell us not to follow the mind. Right? So in that way, the scriptural injunctions help people. Arjuna's question was, why there are scriptural injunctions if I am supposed to act as per my nature only? Right? So the point which Lord Krishna is trying to make is, yes, it is true, your nature will force you to act in a particular way, because that's how the three gunas are working on you. But by studying the scriptures and understanding the scriptures, you can choose to not allow the three modes to act on you in that manner. That's possible. So here we understand it with another diagram. The vasanas or the samskars, they try to pull the living entity in a particular direction. Do this thing, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing. The vasanas or the material impressions that we have on our mind, they are material in nature. So how can something material affect the soul who is spiritual? soul is conscious, vasanas are not conscious. They are just material impressions. So these vasanas, they start influencing a person only if that person's free will gets involved into doing what I am being probed to do by my past impressions. However, by the scriptural injunctions, I can choose to not let my free will be influenced by vasanas or sanskars. So jiva, which means the living entity, will come under the influence of wrong desires only if he or she chooses to do that. So Krishna is telling here that, what happens is basically it works like this. We have done so many activities in the past life, and under certain conditions or some situations, or when we are with certain kind of people, these kind of vasanas or sanskars become activated. Like you have heard certain kind of bacteria and virus, they need a particular atmosphere to become activated. In other atmosphere, they won't be so much active, but in certain other atmosphere, they'll be very active, right? Like for COVID, it was said that in winter, it is very active when it just came. And in summer, it's not so active. So similarly, the impressions we have in our mind, they are hidden. And when we come across a particular situation, they become active. And when they become active, they make us do things in a certain way. Because these vasanas, they have produced a sensation of liking or disliking in the mind previously. I like this, I don't like this, right? So when you see that thing again, oh, I like it, I want to have it again, or I don't like it, so I want to go away from it. But though these impressions are very powerful to instigate the jiva to act, they don't make the jiva powerless to choose. We should understand this thing. Sometimes people say that I could not help doing this thing because that urge was so strong. I could not help myself. But here the acharyas are saying any kind of urge one may have to do any kind of activity, let's say a temptation, my free will is stronger enough to not follow that urge. I can make my free will stronger enough so that it denies that temptation. It is possible. The jiva has that power. So the jiva cannot say that because of my past bad habits, I am forced to act in this manner, right? The jiva has this free will which can be made more strong. Now, so we'll discuss that later, how that free will can be made more strong. Let's go to the next verse, which is 35. Shreyan sadharmo vigunaha paradharma sanushtitat swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties even though faultily than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, or to follow another's path is dangerous. So it applies to both material duties and spiritual duties. We should stick to our material duties and we should stick to our spiritual duties. Why is it dangerous to follow someone else's duty? Because first of all, when I don't do what I am supposed to do, that is considered sin as per the scriptures. You are not doing what you're supposed to do, right? So even if I do something which I'm not supposed to do perfectly, the scriptures will say, you are not meant to do that thing anyway. So why did you waste your time doing it? You are meant to do something else, right? So it's better to do what I'm supposed to do imperfectly than to just do something else which I like to do perfectly. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you may act as a Brahmana, but very nicely, but that will be wrong for you. And you may act as a Kshatriya, and while acting as a Kshatriya, you may kill people and that may bring some reaction to you, but that is perfect, that is correct, because you are a Kshatriya after all. So you don't have to act as a Brahmana. Even if you can be a pure Brahmana, you should act as a Kshatriya only, right? That's what this verse means for Arjuna, in Arjuna's context. Like, non-violence is a good quality. But for whom? For Brahmana, not for Kshatriya. For a Brahmana, it's very good to be non-violent. But for Kshatriya, it is against his own dharma to be non-violent. Because Kshatriya means he should punish people if required. He should kill people if required. How can he be non-violent? Right? So Arjuna's point was that, isn't it better to be a non-violent Brahmana than to be a violent Kshatriya? So Krishna is saying, no, because you are a Kshatriya, you can be violent, and even if there is some imperfection in that activity, because you are doing what you are supposed to do, that will purify you. And if you act as a Brahmana because you are not supposed to do it anyway, that will not purify you. So in simple words, it is like saying, mind your own business. Right? You mind your own business. You do what you're supposed to do. That's going to help you. Even if you can do something else which is okay. So someone posted a comment. If you can do it perfectly, it means it's in our nature. No, it's not necessarily in your nature. You can do it perfectly means that externally you can do it nicely. Seema Mataji. You have a question?
Yes, Prabhuji. I'm not understanding that point, Prabhuji. Exactly that. Then we are trying to understand that there is some inbuilt nature probably which has come from the past. Now, whatever I can do is just because of that nature. So how do we understand this part? I'm a little confused that if in our day-to-day lives, we can figure it out with some example. I'm not clear on that. I did not get that point.
That's what Krishna is telling here, that to Arjuna, your nature is that of a Kshatriya. So you should act as a Kshatriya. Now Arjuna may say, but it is more attractive to me to act as a Brahmana because the Brahmana is non-violent and I can perfectly follow this quality of being non-violent. So Krishna is saying, even if you can be a perfect non-violent Brahmana, you should still act as a Kshatriya, as a violent Kshatriya. So it's not that we have to go against our nature, but sometimes our mind may trick us and may not even let us understand what is my own nature. And because of some kind of material attraction, one may try to take up someone else's nature or someone else's occupation or profession or activity, someone else's duty, just being carried away by emotions or something like that. That I'll take up this task, even if I'm not supposed to do it, right? So that is what is being explained to Arjuna, because Arjuna was trying to do something which was not really his nature. He was thinking, I can act as a Brahmana, but Krishna is saying that it's not your nature, so you shouldn't do that. Satyadev Prabhu. Unmute, please.
Sorry, Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, this is all talking about our job and our work. Ultimately, because if we apply in today's situation, each one of us are trying to do some kind of a job or a business or something. At the end of the day, that is our occupational duty. So if we have to apply this sloka to today's situation in what we do, how do we apply that, Prabhuji?
Well, in the context in which you are asking, there, if the goal of my working in a particular profession is just to earn money, then one may say, if this particular kind of job gives me more money, I'm going to go for that. But if the purpose of any occupation that I take up is spiritual development, as per Varnashram Institute. Then sticking to one's own nature and doing things will bring purification. Like, let's say someone has the nature of a businessman. Now, technically speaking, that person then belongs to Vaishya class. But then that person, instead of being involved in activities which are related to trade or commerce or banking, if that person becomes a teacher, because that person is very good at it, right? But then that person's nature is of a Vaishya. So then that person, now taking up the activity of a Brahmana, may teach very well, but then will not be able to do the teaching as selflessly as Brahmana would do. So the external expertise is there, ability is there, but the character is not there for that particular occupation. Right?
So you are connecting the internal nature to the external ability, because most of the times we go by external ability. I feel that I'm more suitable there by my abilities.
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
So people on the basis of abilities may think that I can do this better than that person.
Yeah.
So let me do that, right? But here Krishna is talking about internal nature. So if a person is not able to do something nicely but is doing as per one's nature, that will bring spiritual development. But here one may get only material benefit, material gain. Okay, good teacher, so can earn a lot of money by that, right? But there won't be any spiritual development by that.
But Prabhuji, in today's situation, whatever work we do, whether we do business or whether we do occupation or anything, if eventually we are not connecting to that Krishna or utilizing the results to the Krishna, whatever activity we are doing anyway, that becomes a material activity. No, Prabhuji. It's not like Swadharma or Parodharma. No, Prabhuji. Here,
that is true. That will become, but then the problem is that if you do someone else's duty, then that becomes sinful. Means it will lead to further degradation.
Oh, even material jobs also that.
Like, okay, in the case that I do what I am supposed to do, it's a prescribed action, I do it. And even if I don't offer the results to Krishna, that will not be considered sinful. That will be considered, let's say, pious. Or the amount of sin will be less because you are doing what you're supposed to do. But if I do something else which I'm not supposed to do, then it is going more towards the negative direction. Because I'm doing something which I'm not supposed to do. So it's like, degrading oneself to a greater extent.
So it's a big science of understanding, in fact, what is the right for me based on my nature, trying to know that one.
People should know that. Even if people don't do as per that, then like Sureka Mataji said, they will not be happy. First thing is that if people don't act as per their nature, they'll not be satisfied. And
thank you.
Fine. So, Seema Mataji, you still have a question?
So, Prabhuji, is it not becoming like a circle that, in that context, I feel most of us probably don't know our real nature and we are working. Maybe externally we are all thinking that I'm a happy person, I'm doing my job well. But somewhere down the line again, I am making a sin and then I'm back to identifying and then again back to. So is it like a circle which is never ending or something? I did not still.
So people who are ignorant about the science of self-realization given in Vedic scriptures, they are in the vicious circle. That's called sansar, the cycle of birth and death. They are in the vicious circle. No chance to come out of it. Padma Mataji.
Prabhuji, in this material world, we have to make choices. You might be in a job, but you are you're having to do that job because maybe it's closer to the friend, to the kids' school, or it's better for work-life balance. It might not be what you really want to do, but you have to compromise for the family. So would that still be seen as going against your nature? But in a way, you're compromising to get that balance to advance towards spirituality, to give you that extra time to do your chanting or go to the temple or etc. It might not necessarily be what you want to do, but you're compromising to progress in spiritual life. Would that be...
Okay, I understood your question. So in scripture, it is said that for a higher cause, if you have to break rules of a lower level, that's allowed.
Oh, okay.
So if you say if you choose a job which is not as per your nature, but it gives you more time to be involved in activities of Krishna consciousness, then for a higher principle, you are breaking a law which is at a lower level. That's allowed.
Okay. So would that apply for doing my duty as a mom, as a wife, so which gives me more time with my family, and also obviously for Krishna consciousness? Would that be okay too?
Yeah, because dharma is above artha. Artha means getting some monetary gain. So if I choose to not follow those principles because I want to facilitate cultivation of some other dharma which is of superior nature, then that's okay.
That's okay too. And also, last question, sorry Prabhuji. At my stage, I'm expected to take higher responsibilities, higher job roles, but I know that would take away from my duties as a mom, as a wife, and also take me away from Krishna. Would that be okay to actually say no, although it's expected of me to keep moving forwards?
Yeah, you say no.
So that's okay to do that?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
So tea, like medicine, works best when prescribed. That's what this section says. There are so many medicines available, but when we do take that medicine with the prescription, there are greater chances that the medicine will benefit us, right? Similarly, duties like that. We can't just do whatever we think is correct. That should be my duty. Then I do it. Next section, beware of lust and anger. Now this is very interesting. Arjuna asks an important question after hearing text 34 that, someone may think that, okay, now I know what is my duty, I know what I'm supposed to do, and from today onward, I'll be very steady in doing whatever I'm supposed to do. And I'll try to control my attachments and my aversions, and only act as per the direction given in the scriptures or as what my guru says. One may think so, that from tomorrow I'll not be the same person anymore. But experience teaches us that we may take such vows many a times in our life. However, we are again the same person, or maybe a little better than before. But we don't change drastically overnight, right? It's difficult to give up bad habits. Even one thinks that one can easily, it is not so easy. So Arjuna says why it is so that, people are not able to follow their vows. So the verse he speaks is, Arjuna uvacha athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichhanmapi vashneya balad iva niyojitaha. Papam charati purushaha. Anichham means without even desiring it. Balad iva niyojitaha. One is engaged forcefully in doing certain things. And this force is coming from inside. Not that someone from outside is forcing you, but something is inside and that is forcing me to do certain activities. So what is that force that is coming from inside? And even if you have decided to not engage in those activities, still you end up doing those things. Why? What is that force that pushes me in that direction, right? And so this is what Arjuna says, this is his question. Now, one may say that this force is basically God's plan or God's will. The translation, Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So there are people in this world who, when they end up doing something wrong, they say this statement, everything happens by God's will. So my doing wrong things is also God's will. In Hindi, they will say this, ye Bhagwan ki leela hai. Means I do something wrong and that is pastime of God. So this is how they generally conclude. As they say, not even a blade of grass can move without his will. So even all the wrong things that I do or others do have happened, are happening, and will happen, inspired by God's will. Because if, as it says, even a blade of grass cannot move without God's will. So people are committing murders, people are raping women, people are looting people. All this is happening by God's will. So you blame God for that, right? Some of you must have seen the movie, Oh My God, right? There was an earthquake and then you blame God for that. So like that, blame God for anything that's happening in this world. Sarva karana karanam. Yes, so how would you tell those people, or how will you convince those people that yes, everything happens by God's will, but then for me doing something wrong, it is not He who is responsible for that. It is not He who is responsible. How will you tell those people about this thing? And at the same time, you have to keep this thing in mind. Nothing can happen without Krishna's sanction. Nothing. So, did Krishna sanction that? Killing of people, raping of women, looting of money, cheating, all that? Did Krishna sanction it? Did Krishna allow it? And if Krishna did not allow it, then how can anything happen without Krishna allowing it? He is the supreme power. If he says it should not happen, it will not happen. So how we tell people about it? Yes, Raseshwari Mataji. You have to unmute yourself. Oh, you are unmute? Cannot hear you. Is the microphone working? Not working. We cannot hear you at all. So, okay, Prabhu says it's because of our free will. That is true. It's because of our free will. But then, what about this point? Is Krishna sanctioning such things? Allowing such things? Yeah, Mataji.
Prabhuji, is it because of the misuse of our free will?
Yeah, it is because of our misuse. Yes, because we misused our free will. But at the end, again, the point is God allowing that to happen or not? Is He involved in that? Harneet Mataji.
Which I'm just, what my understanding is that God has set certain principles. Now it is our previous karma, it is our desire, it is our lust, it is all the material modes of nature which make us do certain things. Now, principles are set by God. God doesn't say that, okay, this should be looted, or, those bad deeds should be done, or whatever. He sets the principle. It is us human beings who are, misusing those principles. And because of all these things, what I've said earlier, because of that, all these things happen. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's right, but that's what my understanding is.
That is correct, what you said, and that's what everyone else will also say. We are misusing our free will. But the point is, okay, I'm misusing. But then why is Krishna allowing it to happen? Satyadevta Prabhu.
Prabhu, if you see the whole life, it is always based on our desires. We are taking birth again and again and again. Unfulfilled desires are getting again fulfilled. That kind of body Krishna is giving. So my understanding is that though Krishna is like inside the heart and he's always there as a Sakshi Bhuta, as a witness, and he's a sanctioner, but eventually we are the people who are choosing what to do because of the free will, and we are responsible for that. And God is only a sanctioner.
That's what, he's the sanctioner. But then why does he sanction murdering of people? That's the point. And let's say if he doesn't sanction, then we are saying that things can happen without he sanctioning also. But that's not possible. It is said not even a blade of grass can move without his will.
This is a very puzzling question, Prabhu, to be honest. A very, very puzzling question.
Then what do you say? There is Maya who allows us to continue. Ratnaleka Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, my understanding is that we have come into this material world because we had desires. And if my desire is there that I had to do this murder, until I do not clean all of those desires that I had, there's no chance of me going back into the spiritual realm with Krishna.
So you mean to say if you have a desire of killing 1,000 people, then first Krishna should allow that desire to be fulfilled, and then that will make you qualified to come back to Godhead?
That's what my understanding would be, because we have so many desires, and until that is not played out, how do we become spotless? To go back.
Is that the only way of becoming purified of desires, that you fulfill these desires?
Well, if we have knowledge, then we definitely we'll check our action, with knowledge, and until we do not have knowledge.
Okay, but that is one-sided argument. No, let's say you have a desire, or someone has a desire to kill 1,000 people, but what about those 1,000 innocent people?
Yeah, they'll come back and kill us in the next life, I suppose.
So now we cannot say, okay, this person has desire to kill 1,000 people, and those 1,000 people had desires to be killed by someone. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, yes, I understand. But that was my thinking, that we have to really have a clean slate before we can.
That is true. That is fine. That is true. But then what about these kind of desires? Maybe past life karma, past karmas of victim. Okay, that's the correct point. All right, now so many hands up, but we got the answer from Anjana Mataji in the chat box. So the answer is, Krishna will not sanction anyone's killing. Krishna will sanction killing of those people only who deserve to be killed because of their past karma. Like so many people in this world, there might be people who are trying to kill them, but they don't get killed. Right? Isn't it? So many people might be trying to kill other people, but they are not getting killed because those people don't have that karma. But someone who has that karma, that this person should get killed, this person can get murdered, in that case, Krishna sanctions it. Because that's what that person is supposed to receive as a reaction to one's own past deeds. So it's not that, Krishna will sanction killing of any person. We know this, right, from experience, that there might be someone very, very very eager to hurt someone else, kill someone else, cheat someone else, but that person doesn't get cheated at all, that person doesn't get hurt at all, that person doesn't get killed. Why? Because Krishna is not sanctioning it. And we see in other situations that some people on first attempt, they get cheated, they get killed. So Krishna allowed it. So Krishna will sanction, but Krishna will sanction on the basis of the past karma of the victim. The past karma of the victim allows the victim to be victimized in that situation. Krishna will say, yes, go ahead. Because that's what that person deserves. But otherwise, Krishna will not sanction. So people may try to do wrong things. If Krishna doesn't sanction, it won't happen. And if Krishna sanctions, then Krishna will sanction on the basis of that person's karma. At the same time, Krishna also gives instructions through the scriptures that, this person is supposed to be killed, that is his or her karma. And you are supposed to kill this person, but then you forgive. So that's then the higher principle. Like, I'll tell you an example. If there are two children, one elderly and one younger, and the elderly child slaps the younger one very hard, and the younger child starts crying. So mama says, "My dear child, don't cry. After all, this person is your elder brother or sister, and he or she sometimes give you so much of love also, brings you gifts, takes you on a cycle ride and plays with you. So today he or she slapped you, don't feel so bad about it." But the child says, no, I also want to slap. Right? So mother will say, okay, you slap, but you slap in front of me, right? And only one slap, not two, only one. And then she will tell the elder child, you see, I tried to convince this brother of yours or sister of yours, but not listening. So allow this child to slap you. Allow. So this slapping is happening by mother's sanction. But mother is allowing it because initially it was the mistake of the elder brother who slapped first. Right? Who slapped first. So she is sanctioning. She's doing a just thing. And at the same time, she may also tell the younger child, no, you forgive, don't slap. That's a higher principle. You forgive, don't slap. So Krishna doesn't sanction blindly. At the same time, we should also understand that those who become victims, it's not just because the person who is committing the crime is at fault. These people also had some karma related to that activity in the past. So that's why they become a victim of it. Satyadeva. Your voice is very...
Sorry, Prabhu. No, in that case, Prabhu, then the person who is committing that, I know you are explaining that the person who was the victim deserves that karma, that's why they went through that karma. But in this case, the person who has committed that crime, will he get sin or not?
Will get the sin.
But at the same time, the other person has to undergo the karma, that's why this sin happened, right?
Yeah, but this person will get the sin. Why? Yeah. Because the principle is you forgive.
This topic came up recently, some year back, a long discussion happened in our group, and a brutal rape happened in Hyderabad of one lady and killed by some people. So this topic has come up, and there was a lot of discussion among our group.
Okay. Yeah, that person will suffer, because now let me tell you something. The elder brother slapped the younger brother with a force of 20 newtons. Okay. And that led to a pain of 500 grams. Just giving a quantity to it.
Yeah.
But the younger brother slapped the elder brother with a force of 30 newtons. And that gave him a pain of 750 grams. So what about that 10 Newton extra? So when we do any activity to revenge for something that was done in the past, what is the guarantee that your slapping will be exactly equal to 20 newtons? There's no guarantee, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if I do something extra, again, that will lead to sinful reaction. So the scriptures, they say that, of course, if someone is getting victimized, there is a karma of that person, that's why he or she is getting victimized. But the person who is becoming the cause of that pain or suffering, will also have to suffer, because you are becoming an instrument in that, right? You could have chosen to not be an instrument by forgiving, but you are becoming an instrument.
Only Krishna knows, Prabhu, whether we are giving more or less. So does it mean that if whatever, continuing your example, if you are just giving the same 500 grams or something, that does it mean that the person who is doing the action would not get any karma because he's just settling the thing from his past life?
I gave you an example to explain to you that the principle of karma is very intricate.
Yeah, I understand.
Right? The example was for that.
Understood.
It's very, very intricate. So if I do it, if I do that action, that will bring me a reaction. Simple.
Because I've read in some stories that sometimes we do a certain action just to kind of settle the past. In the past life, somebody has done that mistake to us. Now we did the same mistake so that so in that situation also, is there karma when you are trying to do that?
Yeah, yes, of course. It is karma. It is karma, no. Karma, the definition of karma is what? Any action is called karma.
I mean to say, it will have reactions, even though if it is done in settlement.
If any action is done for the purpose of yoga, then it brings no reaction. Otherwise, any action will bring reaction. Right? Any action will bring reaction, no?
Yeah.
Whether it is an action which is justified or which is not justified, whether it is pious action or sinful action, it will bring reaction. Someone said, what about cows getting killed? So that is that is also there, that there's karma of those entities involved. That's why they're getting killed. So yes, Rohit Prabhu.
So Prabhuji, when the soul first comes in the material world, he must not be having any karma, right?
When the soul first comes in the material world, the soul has no karma. Yes.
Okay, so like in the case of that two children, if we assume that the first children he doesn't have any previous karma, so the slap he gets, then that's not justifiable, na?
Yeah, but then in that case, how do we say it has no karma? It has karma. That's why that person is born as a child. No, without karma, while that person will be born anyway. To come in the material world means I have some karma. And karma doesn't mean that I have just done some action, then that is called karma. The initial entry of the living entity in the material world is desire. And to desire is also karma. Karma can be physical, karma can be vocal, karma can be mental.
Okay.
Like slapping is physical action. But desiring to slap, what is that?
Also an action, but mental action.
Yeah, also an action, but mental action. So the soul comes to material world, maybe that soul doesn't have a physical karma in the background, but that soul has mental desire, material desire. That's why the soul has come to material world.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. There was a case of 𝗪𝗵𝗿 in Delhi. Was it 𝗪𝗵𝗿 past karmas because of which she faced such brutal act? According to law of karma, yes.
Okay, Prabhuji. Yeah, okay.
Because if you see that video, I saw it. It was on YouTube, I think. That girl, when she was dying, someone went to meet that girl, some lady officer, and that girl then, before she left her body, she told that lady officer that I'm not able to recall clearly, but she was not at all in the mood to forgive these people. She said that I want these people to be, punished, and that would give me peace. Something like that she told to that lady. And then that lady then later on took serious action, and those people were hanged to death, right? All four? No, there were 5. And out of that 5, 4 were hanged to death, I think. 4 were hanged and 1 person was left.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So now you can see in this situation that girl, she left the body having this desire that I want these people to be punished, take revenge. So as per Bhagavad-gita now, chapter 8, 𝗪𝗵𝗿𝗶 smaran bhavam त्यजति ante kalevaram tam eveti kaunteya sadat bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, one will attain that state without fail in next life. Right? So, so if this girl vehemently desires that I want to exercise this kind of pain upon these living entities, then in the future birth, this lady or this soul will be given such opportunities to come across these 5 men again in some other ways and revenge for what she had gone through in the past. And then those 5 people, then they may want to take a revenge for that. So then it goes on like a vicious cycle. It goes on like a cycle like that. So what is the way to come out of that cycle? Scriptures say, forgive. That's the way to come out of it. So forgiveness is, that's why considered a very purifying quality. How purifying? It purifies you from your past sinful karma. It doesn't let you enter into that cycle again. Right? It doesn't let that cycle again. So one should learn to forgive. Okay, we'll move on. I want to complete this chapter. Take questions later. Our hidden enemy. But there's a point. We don't tell a victim these things on face, because a person who is victim will not be able to accept it. So we don't tell a victim on face this understanding. They will not be able to accept it. But this is the truth. So Krishna's answer is, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam 𝗹𝗶𝗿𝗍. So he says, what is that force inside you, Arjuna, that pushes you to do such things? That is called Kam or lust. Lust is that force. So it's not Krishna who is pushing people to do wrong things. It's lust inside them. Lust is translated as desire. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So it's lust which leads one to do that thing. Kam esha, krodha esha. Kam is born of mode of passion, and krodha is born of mode of ignorance. So one desires, and if that desire is not fulfilled, then it later on transforms into frustration, and that leads to anger. And this is the enemy of every living entity, which makes that living entity do wrong things. One is impelled to do wrong things. Now here Krishna is saying Kam is the cause. When previously we were discussing it's Vasana or Sanskar which is the cause, right? So how are these two related? Now this is a very interesting explanation given. Vasana plus free will is equal to Kama. Vasana means contact with sense objects. Free will is contemplation that leads to attachment. And Kama is desire. Going to verse 2.62. Anyone remembers? 2.62. ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसः संगस्तेषु पजायते संगात संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽपि जायते. So dhyayatah means contemplation, and that contemplation happens because of my free will. Coming in contact with sense objects is not my free will. Coming in contact with sense objects is not my free will. Like, take the example of that girl only, 𝗪𝗵𝗿𝗹. She was traveling in the bus with her boyfriend. So these 5 men, they came in contact with this girl, right? Isn't it? That situation was generated because of the past karma of these 7 people. 5, those people in the bus, and these 2, boyfriend and girlfriend. They have come into a particular situation because of some karma in the past, isn't it? It has to be like that. Everything is an arrangement of one's past karma. Why that girl only was there in the bus? Why not some other girl? Correct, isn't it? So it is because of past. So that's vasana, contact. Now, though that contact has been made, then it's the free will of the living entity if he wants to do contemplation on it or not. If that person doesn't do contemplation, it will not lead to desire. But due to free will, one begins to contemplate. And then that contemplation leads to attachment, and that finally leads to kama or desire. And then one wants to fulfill that desire. Okay. So, important point or lesson to take is that because of our past karma, we will be put in situations which may not be very good for us. Because of our past karma. We don't know, right, what all bad things we have done in the past. We don't know. We don't know. So those things will come back to our life. They will revisit us. Those things, those situations, those people, they will come back to us. Some may come back to us to take revenge. Some may come back to us to attack us. Right? Some may come back to us to make us fall in our spiritual life. Anything. So in those situations, if I don't have this knowledge, then I'll just react impulsively and I'll continue to be a part of that cycle. But if one is careful and one doesn't involve one's free will in those things, then that won't lead to material desire or kama. It won't. It will protect one from that. Isn't this knowledge given by Krishna so great? I mean, such deep analysis of this subject matter. Even great philosophers or thinkers cannot analyze or break down so well. Right? So vasana plus free will leads to kama. Okay, so now the solution. How do we stop lust? The solution is, someone please read this.
If therefore stop further degradation. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. 3.37 purport.
So how to become free from
lusty desires?
Lusty desires. The solution is become free from mode of passion. We should meticulously avoid Rajaguna. Very important. If you don't avoid Rajaguna, it will lead to Tamaguna eventually. So one has to do that. And it is seen, people who are too passionate materially, they become a victim of mode of ignorance. And then they commit some wrong activities which are very, very bad. So through Krishna consciousness, one can do that, meticulously avoid Rajaguna, mode of passion, by following the principles of devotional service very nicely. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Today I'm not giving you a break because we have to complete this chapter. We had a long discussion. Next verse. Dhumena vriyate vahanir yathadaksho madena cha yatholvena brito garbhas tathatene damavritam. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Why is Krishna telling this verse to Arjuna? He wants to encourage Arjuna that you can overcome this enemy called lust. Why? Because you are not a tree, you are not an animal, you are a human being. So in a human being, the amount of lust is less. In an animal, it's more. In a tree, it is a lot more. A lot more. That's why that entity has a tree body. Why tree body? Because the amount of lust is huge. So the consciousness is covered to a great extent. That's why tree body. Jada. The material nature has punished that living entity to be a tree. Like if a child is creating a lot of disturbance in the class, then the teacher will say, you don't move at all. You just stand there at the corner of the room. Don't move. Don't talk. Just stand there. Because if you start moving around, you will only create nuisance. So you just stand at one place. So likewise, those who are very ignorant and lusty, Krishna tells them, or material nature tells them, become a tree. Don't trouble anyone. Just stand there. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you can overcome lust because you are a human. You can do, that's fine. So this analogy is very nice. Smoke and fire, dust and mirror, womb and embryo, human, animal and tree. When the smoke covers the fire is still visible. When the dust covers the mirror, the glass is not visible, but the frame of the mirror is visible. And when the womb covers the embryo, neither the embryo is visible, nor the embryo can feel what is going on outside. The covering is very thick, right? Similarly, when the lust is very thick, then one cannot understand Atma Gyan, knowledge of soul. When lust is thinner, then one can understand. So for a human being, it's possible to understand spiritual knowledge because the amount of lust is not so thick, right? It's possible. Here, lust doesn't just mean attraction between man and woman. Here, lust means desire to enjoy material things. It's called lust. So if that is less, then there's a possibility of understanding spiritual subject matter. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. That's what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Okay, just a second now. Sorry. So lesson. Human life is an opportunity to decrease lust and to become free from lust, not to aggravate it more. Because if we aggravate it more, then the other body, the next body that will be given is not of a human being. Then we may be given the body of an animal, or we may be given the body of a tree or plant. So this tendency has to be reduced, not increased. Now we have something interesting now to reflect upon. It is fashionable these days to wear revealing clothes, especially for the women class. They think that doing so is an expression of asserting their freedom. You might even have heard people say, it is my body, and however I dress is none of your business. It is my choice after all. So try to imagine the future of a civilization based on this mindset, considering Gita's explanation on the subject of lust. So what will happen to such civilization? People of that civilization will degrade to animal form or to tree form. We see that from scriptures. There are examples like that. So people have to understand this thing very nicely, that lust is an enemy for me and for others. So I should not act in any way that this enemy becomes stronger, either in my life or in the lives of others. Yeah, when we'll study 𝗪𝗵𝗵, we'll discuss more on this. But here I'm just making a point. One should be very careful that the way I act, the way I speak, the way I dress, the way I behave, it should not aggravate it should not aggravate lust in others' mind. That is also one kind of violence. Not violence to the body, but it is violence to that person's spiritual life. I'm being violent because what I'm trying to do may degrade that person in his or her thoughts, in his or her acts, in his or her desires, and that becomes a violence. Because the people of modern times don't have this knowledge of Bhagavad-gita, they are simply paving their path to so much of punishment in future by the material nature. So much of punishment. So this has to be understood properly. And this applies to both men and women, not just women, even for men. It applies. One should not try to kindle passionate desires in others or passionate feelings in others. Lust makes one alien to the concept of pure selfless love, the love of pure soul for the supremely pure, supreme Lord. That's what lust does. That's why here lust is being called as enemy by Lord Krishna. This is enemy, material desires. So where is the enemy located? If you want to kill the enemy, you should know where is the enemy located. So Krishna mentions that as a strategy. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nitya vairina kamarupena kontena dushpurena nalena cha. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Indriyani mano buddhir asyadhishthanamuchyate etirvimohayatyesha jnanamavritya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So, three places the lust is situated. On our senses. Which senses? 5 senses. Knowledge acquiring senses. Jnana Indriya. Lust is situated there. And then it is situated in our mind. And then it is situated in our buddhi, intelligence also. So for this, it's important to understand how is it situated where. Okay, someone can read this, please. Who has not read yet?
Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. The senses and mind. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul. And therefore, Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses. And thus, when we hear about sense objects and mind, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratifications. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Chapter 3, Shloka 40 purport.
Someone can read this, someone else. Yes, Anjana Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Please read.
Intelligence also. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. 3.40 purport.
Yeah. So how do the lust work at these three different places? Taking the example of senses first. Let's say the eyes see something, and then the eyes will say or will send a signal, a message. I like it. It is so nice. So this is how lust is acting on the eye, the sense of vision, seeing. Okay, I like it. It is so nice. Or I hate it. It is not at all nice. So either there is lust or there is anger. Then how the lust will act on the mind? Okay, I want it. You like it? I want it. So the mind decides, yes, I need it. I want it. That's how the lust will act on mind. And then how will the lust act on intelligence? Okay, I will tell you how to get it for sure. So these three work in this manner. It starts with the sense. Then the mind says, I want it. And the intelligence says, I'll help you get it. So all the process, the plan will be done by intelligence. But the decision that I want or I don't want, that will be made by mind. If the mind says, I don't want it, the intelligence will tell, okay, I'll tell you how to run away from it. If the mind says, I want it, then the intelligence will say, okay, I'll tell you how to get it. So that's a function of lust at these three places. Lusty mind, lusty senses, lusty intelligence. So how do you conquer then these, how do you conquer lust? So Krishna explains that next. Where and how to attack lust. Way to attack lust and how to attack lust. Tasmat tvamindriyanyadyo niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Therefore, Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curbed this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses. So the first thing is that I regulate the senses. Because it is all started by the senses. The senses will trigger the signal to the mind, I like it or I don't like it. And then the mind will act on that. So first you regulate the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So that's why there are do's and don'ts of what one can do, what one cannot do, right? Someone wants to read this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay. Yes.
Regulative principles of bhakti. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. 3.41 purport.
Yes, so it's very difficult to control lust. Actually, in spiritual world, love is the most powerful force. And it is said lust is reflection of love. So it should not be difficult for us to understand that lust is also very powerful because it is reflection of love. And in spiritual world, love is the most powerful force. So in material world, lust has to be most powerful force in negative sense. So it's not easy to overcome that. But Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by by following the regulative principles of devotion service. Even a late beginner. So determination is a function of intelligence. The stronger intelligence means greater determination to control the mind. There are two types of intelligence, material and spiritual. Likewise, there are two kinds of determination, material determination and spiritual determination. If someone is determined to climb Mount Everest, that is material determination. That's not spiritual determination. But if someone is determined to do Govardhan Parikrama, that is spiritual determination. Right? Both of these tasks may be difficult. Right? But then one is spiritual, the other is material. So this determination is a function of intelligence. Determination comes from intelligence. And when we have stronger intelligence, then we can be determined to control the mind. How do you make that intelligence stronger? How do you strengthen the intelligence? That's given in the next verse. Indriyani paranayahur indribhya param manaha manasastu parabuddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So the point is, I, the soul, can control the intelligence. That intelligence can control the mind, and the mind can control the senses. However, for a person who is not Krishna conscious, it happens or it works in the opposite direction. The senses control the mind controls the intelligence, and the intelligence controls the soul. Lusty intelligence controls the soul. Now this is a very nice paragraph. Someone please read this. Hanit Mataji wanted to read.
Hare Krishna. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you need to go up. Then automatically the mind becomes stronger, and even though the senses are very strong like serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind and the senses, also still, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna consciousness, with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind.
Yes. So what does this one line mean? With intelligence, one has to seek the constitutional position of the soul. What does this mean? What are your thoughts on this? With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul. What does this mean? Anik Mataji.
Prabhuji, the constitutional position of the soul is that the soul is a part and parcel of Krishna.
Yeah. So what it means to seek out that?
So once we know that we are a part and parcel of Krishna, we always have to be engaged in Krishna consciousness. I mean, that's what I understand.
Yes. So I know, you know, all of us know that.
Okay. So what is the question exactly?
So when it says one has to seek it out. So if I already know, then why it is said you need to seek it out?
Maybe we know, but we don't practice it adequately.
Okay. What else? Someone else has got something to contribute. Seema Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I think we are in so much of the we are in so much ego of the I self that we do not know that the soul or the Atma, we keep on with the ego I. So that is why we need to seek out and understand the position of the Atma or the soul itself first.
Yes, okay. Satyadevta Prabhu.
My understanding from this sentence is that we all know theoretically that we are a soul, we are eternal servant of the Lord. But until we do the thorough practice and until we do the sadhana, reach a stage of self-realization, we cannot truly understand that one. Once we come to that stage, probably we are away from the lust and we see everything is a creation of the God and do not feel lusty.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Vijay Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Being a living entity, we always want to enjoy ourselves independent of Krishna, which is not the purpose, which is not the nature of the soul. So it has been advised to seek with intelligence that what is the constitutional position of the soul.
Okay, thank you. Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. What I feel that our mind always sways here and there, and to bring our mind to Krishna consciousness, divert it towards Krishna consciousness, I think we have to use our intelligence. It is through our intelligence only that we can direct it towards Krishna consciousness.
Okay. Anjana Mataji.
As my perception, Prabhuji, actually we all know what's wrong and what's right, and what to do and what not to do. But when the time comes, our ego, we are not so determined to do right things, that when time comes, ego overflow our right thoughts, and we just go with our ego, and ego overcomes our intelligence, and we don't pay attention to our intelligence, and we do according to our ego, and our each and every decision is based on our ego.
Okay. Nyamat, last.
Prabhuji, we have to seek out, means it is hidden within us. This knowledge is hidden within us, and it is hidden under many, many layers of ignorance since many births.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So seeking out here means, like some of you mentioned, we know theoretically, we don't know, we have not realized. But here seeking out also means that you don't seek it out once in a while. You are always thinking about it and meditating on it. That who am I? I am Krishna's servant. I am Krishna's part and parcel. So when I am always conscious about my identity as Krishna's part and parcel and Krishna's servant, then I can inspire my own mind to be always engaged in Krishna consciousness. If I am not identifying myself with that, then I'll not be able to push my mind to think in those lines and to act in that manner. Right? I'll soon forget I'm supposed to serve and not supposed to enjoy. And I'll start enjoying rather than serving. So one has to remind oneself again and again. Now, how do you do that? Using the intelligence means that you contemplate and meditate on it. That what is my constitutional position? And be thoroughly convinced about it. And revisit that conviction again and again. In that way, whatever we do, we'll be able to remind ourselves that I have to do it for Krishna's pleasure. So seeking out means here not just knowing it, but actually reminding oneself about it again and again and practicing it, seeking out that position in all situations. And that will help one to be properly situated in Krishna consciousness. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Next verse is 43, last verse. Evam buddhe param buddhva samstabhyatmanam jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So, okay. Seema Mataji, you wanted to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Strengthen the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribe duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter, 3.43 purport. Thank you.
So, through transcendental knowledge, one will be able to strengthen one's intelligence. And then how do you get that transcendental knowledge? That will be explained in the next chapter, chapter number 4. The title of that chapter is Transcendental Knowledge. So it is a continuation of this discussion which is going on between Krishna and Arjuna, same topic. In this chapter 3, we discussed all these topics. Arjuna begins with the question, should I engage as a Kshatriya or should I take sannyas? Karma or Tyaga? Option. And Krishna tells Arjuna, do Nishkama Karma Yoga. Then Krishna explains about Karma Kanda, Karma Yoga and sacrifice. Then set a good example for others to follow. Then Arjuna says, what forces us to do wrong actions? And Krishna explains, win over your inner enemy called lust. That's what we discussed in this chapter. These are the sections of this chapter. We'll stop here. Any questions? Yes, any questions or comments? Seema.
Prabhuji, over here, the last 42 shloka, when they are talking about the buddhi and body and everything. So body means like, do we understand it as like physical quotient, senses as emotional quotient? No. Intelligence as IQ, something like that? Is it the same connection?
What people understand as intelligence and how they find IQ is not really related to the intelligence that Krishna is talking about. Okay. A person may have a very high IQ, but that person may have a very bad character. So how do you call that person really intelligent?
Okay.
Right? So the way of materially calculating intelligence is wrong. The way of materially calculating emotions is wrong. Right? So even physically, I mean, some people, they may, as per doctors, opinion, that person may be very healthy, but that person may not be actually healthy. And as per doctor's opinion, someone may not be very healthy, but that person may be actually quite healthy. So this material calculation is not always correct. You see that. Sometimes people are having disease and you take all the reports and it shows everything is normal. Everything is fine with that person, right? But that person is sick. And sometimes people are quite healthy and the reports come as if that person is going to die tomorrow. And that person doesn't die. So the way of materially calculating these things are not really correct. Yes. Nagaraj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. I did not understand, with the intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul. So I did not understand exactly what this refers to or means.
Okay, so constitutional position of the soul means that the soul is a part and parcel of Krishna. And being a part and parcel of Krishna, that soul is a servant of Krishna, eternal servant of Krishna. That's the later part. With intelligence, one has to seek that out, which means that with intelligence, one has to search for that position in all situations and try to be situated in that position. It's like, how do I identify myself in any situation? So if I identify myself in any situation like this, then it's going to be easy for me to be Krishna conscious in that situation, or use my mind in Krishna consciousness. So with intelligence, I try to relocate or reorient my thinking, feeling, and willing in this direction.
Thank you.
A person is driving a car and is on the road. Now there's a left turn, there's a right turn. What will the intelligence do if you are drifting towards the left more or drifting towards the right more? Then the intelligence will say, come back on track. You have gone too much to the left. You may meet an accident. Or you've gone too much to the right. There's a cliff and you may fall off, right? So the intelligence will say, come back on the road, drive straight. So the intelligence helps you to reorient yourselves. Likewise, the mind drifts, goes away from the goal, from the right attitude, right thinking, and the intelligence has to reorient the mind. How? First by seeking the goal, and then you reorient yourself towards that goal. So it's like reminding yourself and again and again what the goal is. Right? That's what intelligence is supposed to do. Process of planning. Ushamata.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I did not understand the verse 3.42. It says working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So this is the order that we generally follow in sort of recognizing the intelligence or the soul, Prabhuji?
That is the correct order. That's how it should be. But when we are conditioned, we are in illusion, then the order is not like that. Then instead of the intelligence controlling the mind controls the intelligence. Instead of mind controlling the senses control the mind. So it becomes opposite. But it should be the other way. It should be the other way. So that's what is being explained there to Arjuna, that the intelligence should be controlling the mind, but when one's intelligence is not strong enough, then the mind will start controlling the intelligence. If, let's say, the police officer is weak, or is, the police officer is weak, and the thief is stronger than the police officer, then the thief will beat down the police officer and run away from there. Similarly, when the intelligence becomes weak, then the mind starts ruling over the intelligence. When the mind becomes weak, then the senses start ruling over the mind. So the solution to that given is, you make the intelligence stronger, then it will come back to the correct order, then the intelligence will start controlling the mind will start controlling the senses.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
How to understand that love is going to be transformed into lust? At what point? In Chaitanya Charitamrita it said, Atmendriya vichcha tar balikama Krishnendriya priti vancha tar dharinam prema nama. Which means, when a living entity desires pleasures for Krishna, that is called love. And when a living entity desires pleasure for oneself, that is called lust. So when the tendency to give becomes replaced by the tendency to take, when the tendency to serve becomes replaced by tendency to exploit, When the tendency to cooperate becomes replaced by the tendency to compete, lust emerges, or love transforms into lust. That's how it happens. Okay. To avoid karma, do we have to forgive everyone who does wrong to us? To avoid karma, do we have to forgive everyone who does wrong to us? You forgive, but not to the extent that that person starts exploiting you. Right? So we don't want that person to commit more sin. Just like going back to that example of younger child slapping the elder boy once. So the elder boy may forgive, okay, I slapped you once, you slapped me once, account clear. But then the younger child wants to slap 5 more times. So then that becomes extra unnecessary karma, right? So at that time, it would be helping the younger child to stop slapping, because that will bring sinful reaction or wrong reaction to the child. So we forgive people out of compassion, and at the same time we don't allow people to exploit us further, again out of compassion. So what do? You keep distance from them. If you find people who are again and again trying to hurt you, disturb you, create problems in your life, despite you have given them warnings, or you have forgiven them many times in the past. So what you do is that then you cut off your relationship with those people. Then you make distance, safe distance. You don't allow those people then to come back to your life. Because if they come back to your life, they will again try to hurt you or do something wrong to you. So we do that. So we keep safe distance from such people.
And if it's not possible to keep a safe distance, what do you do?
No, it's not possible to keep safe distance, then you consider that as a karma. Because the principle of karma is this: I did my part, and if the result I am getting is not what I expected, then it's my karma. That's what the principle of karma says. Like, for example, I'm sick, go to the doctor, take medicine. I did my part. But even if after taking medicine I'm not getting cured, now that's my karma. So we don't take an action. We do take an action. But after taking action, when the result is not as per our expectation, then we understand this is what my karma is. If my karma was that I'll become cured, I'll become cured. But if I'm not getting cured, that means the providence is not allowing me to get cured. Right? So if you are trying to keep distance from someone and still that thing is coming back to you again and again, which means that then you have serious karmic, bondage with that person. That's why that thing is not going away. Okay, Sanjay Prabhu.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, you have said that means whatever you have said that it also applies in case of means a devotee, that we should means avoid him, we should not do his company again.
We should?
Means Prabhuji, you have said that we should means suppose one person is there who has done means wrong things with us. Then I want to tell you that even it is applied in case of a devotee or what?
Yeah, it applies to everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Devotee also. Kalpana Matra.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, suppose you are a victim and like you are trying your best to forgive and you know that it is your karma, but still there is somewhere where you feel that I should take some action, I should give some lesson. Does that mean you are a Kshatriya?
No, but then it depends on what role you are playing. If you are playing the role of a parent, you're playing the role of a teacher, you're playing the role of a king, you're playing the role of a leader, then to teach to your subordinates, that is your duty. So you are acting as per your duty. But then so many people are doing so many wrong things in this world. And if I just, start taking up this mentality, I need to correct everyone in this world and I want to reform people, then that's wrong. So if you have the adhikar, or if you are supposed to play the role of a person who has to give punishment, rectification, correction, then you do that. That's a part of your duty. But if it's not a part of your duty, then doing that would be wrong. Someone commits someone has done some crime, so that person should be punished. Now, it doesn't mean that I should personally hang that person, isn't it?
But taking some action regarding that ill thing, does that mean that you are kind of Kshatriya?
Well, it's not just about that. Just by taking an action, one doesn't become a Kshatriya. Kshatriya means there are other things also. It's not just, okay, because someone slapped me and I slapped that person back, then I'm a Kshatriya. It's not so easy to become a Kshatriya. Like just, if you slap someone, you become a Kshatriya. So, taking revenge, main thing is that the attitude of taking revenge. Even a Brahmana may have this attitude of taking revenge. That person, a Brahmana may not physically punish someone or kill someone, but may curse that person, right? Okay, that I curse you, you become an animal, or you become a dog, or you become a tree, or you become a demon. So that Brahmana is not actually physically doing any harm, but cursing is also one kind of revenge. Okay, so
thank you.
Nothing to relatives. Okay. Seema Mataji, last question.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, this is during the class at some point, Prabhuji mentioned that the soul is coming clean and pure. So then how do we develop this nature in that case? Then we are saying we are also having the nature from the past. So if the soul has come in this birth clean, so then I got mixed up there.
The soul has come with, when you say the soul is clean and pure, you see how it starts, we have to understand it technically. It's not that the soul has to do something wrong to be punished. Even the tendency to do something wrong will be caught by the super soul of Paramatma. I was explaining this to the Hindi batch. Let's say there are 10 people who group together to do some project, and they are doing something very, very confidential for the country, some kind of related to government or defense or something. 10 people come together. They don't know each other, they are strangers. And there is a head of this group. Okay. Now they're just only planning now. They have not done anything. But during this planning, the head of this group begins to understand that one of the people we have in this group is not really in sync with us. And this person seems to be a trespasser. This person seems to be a spy. How does that person understand? Not because that person has done something wrong, just by looking at that person or noticing the expressions of that person, this person starts getting that signal. This person seems to be a spy. Likewise, the Paramatma or Super Soul is sitting so close to us. I mean, when I desire something, before I know that I have this desire, the Super Soul knows this person desires this thing. The Super Soul is so close to us. So just the tendency to enjoy separately from Krishna is understood by Krishna, even before I exercise that tendency. It's not that I have to exercise that tendency, then Krishna will come to know this person has become a trespasser. No, just the desire of it. Even before I realize that I have that desire, Krishna will understand that this person has this desire.
So the sin is committed even in thoughts.
Of course, yes. That's where it begins, isn't it? Now, anything physical, where it will begin first? in the mind.
Yes.
Then it will become physical later, right?
Yes, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, where does the nature fit in this place now? That the nature is like that when we have spoken.
Nature
That
means, nature here means to your sabha which you have got from your past lives. So
that was carried by the soul.
That is carried by the soul. That's carried by the subtle body, not the soul. That's carried by the mind.
Oh, we don't get the soul alone.
No, the mind is doing all this. That's what we discussed. No, the vasanas or sanskars are stored in the mind. The impressions are on the mind, and the mind is with the soul.
So when a person dies, the mind goes.
With the soul. Yeah, the mind goes with the soul.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll start with chapter 4.